My approach seems to imply that if we have limits to scientific discourse, they're not technical limits, even though there may be technical limits, of course there are. Like we can only build a super collider so big or spend so much money on it, for example. But whatever the technical limits are to scientia, first principles inquiry, science, there are moral limits, ethical limits, moral limits related to moral sentiment, related to your own personal, spiritual privacy, that which is most dear and private to your heart of hearts, that which, as Jim Prideaux said to Smiley, when Smiley asked, what was your final line of defense? Prideaux says, control's crazy theory. I was going to bury that one so deep dark, ain't no one was going to get at it. Control's crazy theory. Of course, the joke was, incidentally, that there was nothing to hide because Carla knew all along. So how's that for a moral dimension? Prideaux's thinking in terms of epistemic endurance, and Carla's thinking already in terms wholly extrinsic in the formal sense, extrinsic to the system. Carla's thinking about Anne Smiley, for example. Carla's thinking about Jim Prideaux's friend, Bill Hayden. That's the KGB. Or, Le Carré's KGB anyway. Moral limits. Moral limits to science. What? Sacred limits. Masturbation limits. Right? Rape limits. Torture limits. Maybe torture is easier. It's like pure victimization. Rape is hard. Rape is hard because everybody gets defensive. That's the ultimate thing about discussing one's private life, is that everybody gets defensive for a number of reasons. I mean, there are two main reasons. First of all, audacity, and second of all, audacity. What's it mean that you're oversharing? And then what's that mean about me? Am I supposed to overshare too? So, science begins and ends with sentences. Sentences are logically permuted and combinatorialized, and we see different configurations. They're all available by a few logical connectives such as and, or, and the infamous material consequence. Is that the right word? Consequence, logical consequence. Much less intuitive of a connective, if it's even considered a connective, than things like and, or, right. Let's suppose, now, but interestingly, that none of the counter-arguments really seem to get to the personal level. I'm the one that's pushing it there. Because the main counter-arguments are something like this. Coming from phenomenology, the main knockdown argument against analytic philosophy is, oh, so there's this dude, Frege, and he's got a completely white beard. He's an old white dude from Jena. What was his sexuality like? Oh, Jesus. That was what... He's really uptight? Oh, shit. We're going to listen to the guy with the white beard. It's not even shapely. If you notice Engel's beard, very black, very robust, very shapely, right? Much easier to have intuitions, positive intuitions about Engel's. But if you look at Frege's beard, it's more like this. And it's all white. It's wispy. And he's kind of an indignant guy because he has umbrage that he's a mathematician and mathematicians don't listen to him. And he's not a philosopher, but he thinks that philosophers should listen to him. And they end up listening to him after he dies. So, in the comp lit department in the United States, it's all continental phenomenology, right? And literary criticism and so on. And so people like Frege and Aristotle are looked askance because they are at the very top of society. They have all the power and they have the white beard and they expound teachings. They expound teachings and ram it down your throat. And boy, doesn't it feel good to just get authoritarianized by Gottlob Frege. No, it doesn't feel good. And I understand the argument. I'm not interested in old white men being vertical about society. No. I am anti-patriarchal in whatever straightforward sense. If you want to complicate it, I'll complicate it. But more or less, I'm anti-patriarchal. Whatever it is that we've understood of patriarchy, we can get rid of it. And I don't know what it gets replaced with. I don't know. How about the matriarchy? That's fine. Give women a few hundred years at least. Let them run it. We'll take care of the kids and get stoned. The non-women. Or, I don't know. The big swinging dick men will stay home and take care of the kids and get stoned, if you'll let us. Get stoned, that is. Okay, so let's call that the deconstructionist argument against Frege. Let's call it the rich white beard argument, okay, against Frege. Okay, now, but hold on. What's Frege's counter-argument? What's Frege's response? He says, look it, don't make so much about my personal authority because I certainly am not, he says. Look, you can have anything you want, any sentence, but it has to be a sentence. Now, nobody really takes him up on this, except me. It's fucking brilliant. I mean, Frege is a deconstructionist if I've ever seen one. In order for Frege to avoid the idea that he's just expounding and proffering from the third category, assertoric force, right? That everything depends on Frege's ass, not on Frege's concept or on his judgment, but on his ass getting in your face, right? It's right there in the paper. What is it, page 4 or 5? Concept, judgment, assertoric force, right? Well, we don't want to believe Frege ramming his science down our throats with his assertoric force, right? No, I don't either. But Frege's not expounding this. He says, look, you can have whatever the fuck you want, but it has to be a sentence. How's that for a compromise? Well, it works for me. It works for me, personally, as Dimitri. It works for me, but now, why will that not work for the analytic philosophy community? Because analytic philosophers who shall remain nameless do not want to discuss their sexual behavior. That's why. But the counterargument never comes up because that's a lousy counterargument. If you're afraid of having your bullshit exposed because it's too scientific or too transparent. Everybody loves transparency, right? Except when that transparency involves your own ejaculation. If you're squirting bodily fluids all over the place, we don't have to be transparent about that, right? Oh, do tell. Okay, so that's, if anybody pressed the analytic philosopher on this, this is probably what they would like to argue, but of course they cannot argue that because they have to remain fearless. And, you know, if Frege is our teacher, he was fearless enough. He accepted Russell's paradox, no problem. Frege could have handled all manner of pornographic discussion, provided it's formatted in an analytic way. No problem. So it's fine with Frege, but not his disciples. Personal talk. I doubt personal talk would have been okay for Frege too, because I doubt he had much of a sex life, right? What's that tell you about his intuitions? Nah, get rid of those intuitions. They're not admissible in science. When's the last time you got laid, dude? Look, if you're fucking every day, there's no way you can exclude intuition from your philosophy. Are you serious? The intuitions of fucking are the foundation of philosophy, much more than whatever logicism defense you can come up with, Gottlob Frege. It's in your balls. It's not in your concepts, dude. I mean, look, it's like this. Your balls are in your concepts, Frege. Doesn't mean you don't have balls. It just means your balls are conceptual balls, right? Yes. Does that sound correct? It is. So what are you afraid of your balls? You're ashamed of your balls? Frege's got the biggest fucking balls, and he says he says no intuition, right? Okay. Okay, so we've got the rich white beard argument, a contra Frege coming from the phenomenologists and coming from the analytic philosophers. Also contra Frege is, let's say, the private masturbation argument. That's the ultimate limit of science is private masturbation, or let's say private ejaculation. Or no, sacred ejaculation. How about that? Sacred ejaculation shan't be associated with any sentence, right? Because then it would become science. Okay. There is another argument that will, if the shame about ejaculation argument does not come out from, no pun intended, philosophers of language and linguists and analytic philosophers, if it doesn't come out, then this one will. Oh, are you suggesting that for Frege anything goes? Anything goes. What about contradictory sentences? What's the status of contradictions? Anything goes. See, if you really, Higginbotham might say, well, it's not going to be Higginbotham because he would probably have to follow my argument, but I don't know. Michael Devitt, how's that? Michael Devitt. Suitable big swinging dick, Michael Devitt. Well, yeah, don't, if you want to make Frege speak deconstructionist, then what? I'm a fried egg? Everything goes? Woohoo, fuck a dog, right? Nietzsche? Anything goes. Well, then comes along Priest and Sylvan, and they say, well, hold up. We have a lot of relativistic cultural talk, right? And if one thing is relative to another and everything is universally relativizable, then what? Anything goes? I'm a fried egg, right? No, because he explains, Graham Priest, he explains that dialetheism, and he's formalized it. He's proven mathematically that certain contradictions, I assume very abstract contradictions regarding unbounded universals or something, right? Which are very simple definitions of universals. If anything like that, if any place we seem to go wrong and our relativism leads to unregulated logical explosion, the principle of logical explosion, well, Priest and Sylvan to the rescue. They have formalized, essentially, the Kantian regulatory principle that governs the antinomy. Contradiction doesn't have to lead to every fucking absurd statement. Contradiction can be isolated and scrutinized without infecting the whole system. In other words, it can be true that there is neither male nor female, right? Neither male nor female, but also maybe the future is female. How about those two statements together? Well, classical logic might tell you, so would go a card-carrying classical logician, that it's got to be one or the other, maybe. But relative truth, Steve Diablo does something with partial truth. It's similar. It's not unrelated, right? In other words, we want principles that can regulate relativism, cultural relativism, such that we don't truly have it that, well, I guess we can fuck a dog and, I'll just, eat my brother for breakfast tomorrow. Cannibalism's okay. No, our relativism cannot lead to things like cannibalism and so on. But nevertheless, we want to recognize that if you're a Catholic and I'm a Byzantine, is there really some excluded middle such that one of us surely is right and one of us surely is wrong? No. Universals are not a zero-sum game.